Merhaba arkadaşlar. In this lesson, I will discuss what your book calls non-future subject participle. It's also known as subject-oriented relative clause. So you'll start making relative clause. Basically, what that means is in English, I'll give you a couple examples. The author who wrote this book is my brother. The house in front of which there is a tree is 100 years old. Quite complicated sentences, right? So it's exciting that you'll be able to say these things. It's not as complicated, I think, in Turkish. We just need a suffix. I mean, surprise, surprise, right? So the relative clause, subject-oriented relative clause suffix is yan. The ye buffer and an, according to our harmony changes. Okay, and it's attached to the verb, and it's to modify the subject. All right. So I will explain with an example as always. So the sentence I want to start with: Çocuk kitap okuyor. The kid, the child, is reading a book. So how do we make this into a relative clause? First of all, we need to find the subject. The subject of the sentence is çocuk. And if you have difficulty finding the subject, usually a good strategy is look at the verb. Usually Turkish shows the verb, shows the subject in the verb. Okuyor is third person, so çocuk probably, right? But another way of saying that, you ask this question: who did the action? Or who read the book, right? So the who question, it'll answer subject. Çocuk okuyor. So then there is the çocuk, right? All right, so what you do is bring the subject to the end of the sentence, strip the verb from tense and personal conjugations and all of that, bring it to the stem, and add the relative clause suffix. It becomes kitap okuyan çocuk, the child who reads. Now it's not a full sentence anymore. Yes, it's not. We need a new sentence to finish and probably give more information about the tense, the personal information, because okuyan doesn't have those anymore, right? It only modifies the subject. Okuyan çocuk, the child who reads. Okay. I mean, let's put this into sentences so it makes more sense. Kitap okuyan çocuk uykuya daldı. The child who reads the book fell asleep. You see how it is? Like in the second sentence, we have more information about the action, about the subject. You can always make relative clauses out of negative sentences. If this was a negative sentence, for instance, çocuk kitap okumuyor, you would keep the negative in the verb. Then it will become kitap okumayan çocuk, the child who doesn't read. Okay? So I talked about these, these examples have verbs in them. But of course, in Turkish, there are sentences without verbs, the predicates, right? Öğretmen sınıfta, for instance. How do you make a relative clause out of this? You will need to add olmak into the sentence. So you bring öğretmen, which is the subject of this sentence, to the end, sınıfta, and then you add olan between them, sınıfta olan öğretmen. Okay? Because it's the missing part, right? So you add olmak to that. If it was a negative predicate, for instance, öğrenciler sınıfta değil, then you would make olmak negative. Sınıfta olmayan öğrenciler. Okay? There are a few important aspects to remember now. So the first thing is there's a reason why your book called this suffix as non-future, because there's one for future. We're going to learn that next. But this one is used only for present continuous or past tense, not for future. So, for instance, we used çocuk kitap okuyor. It's present continuous and it became kitap okuyan çocuk. If it was past tense, çocuk kitap okudu, it would still be kitap okuyan çocuk. All right? So remember that. Of course, you know, the okuyan doesn't have the tense information or personal information. As I said before, those will appear in the main clause, right? In the main verb. Okay. Sometimes in context, the head noun can drop. So çocuk can drop. But I'll give you another example this time. So the example is, adam bana mektup yazdı. The man wrote me a letter. Okay? So let's make this a relative clause. Bana mektup yazan adam. And let's finish it. Bana mektup yazan adamı tanımıyorum. I don't know the man who wrote me the letter. All right? So let's say that in context, the audience that know that we're talking about the adam, you can say, bana mektup yazanı tanımıyorum. So you basically dropped adam. It's okay. It can happen. All right? But then that yazan will act like a subject now. Right? Because, you know, yazanı tanımıyorum, it suddenly took accusative case. So yes, but it happens. Okay? Finally, in colloquial Turkish, you may hear this. So, anlayan means the one who understands, right? Anlayan. We tend to say anlayan. Dinleyen, dinleyen. Olmayan, olmayan. Do you hear the difference? I'm sure you do. You're much better than hearing these things than I do. So yeah, when you hear that, don't be confused. So that's it for this video. You can always read this in your books, and actually I think you should do that, and you also do the exercise in your books. The more the better. But bugünlük bu kadar. Kolay gelsin. Derste görüşürüz.